Hi, everyone. Thank you for tuning to my channel, Breastfeeding Blogs. And I'm excited to talk to you today about how weaning works. I decided that I had to wean my baby when I found out that I was going to have surgery. So I exclusively breastfed my baby for 6 months and I slowly started to wean her off. So one of my resources that I use is this wonderful 100 questions and answers breastfeeding guide. It's wonderful because literally it's a question and answer. So I'm going to read to you what the response is from this book in case you are wondering. And this is just my little quick review that I think this book is amazing. It is full of common questions that a typical person would want to know about breastfeeding. So in the book, it says, when should I wean my baby? How does weaning work? The recommendation from health and professional authorities is to nurse exclusively for 6 months. Now, I believe they may have updated this and added more time. Nonetheless, it says add solid foods around 6 months and continue to breastfeed for 1 year or 2 or 3 or more. Research has shown that breastfeeding health benefits increase in the second half of the first year. Breast milk continues to be nutritious, even increasing in calories and nutrients as time goes by. As long as both a mother and a baby is enjoying nursing, they should continue to do so. When the mother decides to wean, there are some strategies that seem to work best. First, think about the baby's nutrition. If the baby is less than a year old, she will need formula. If the baby is more than a year, her nutrition is still a consideration. How will she get these nutrients? Cow's milk, whole milk yogurt. With all babies, whether less than or more than a year old, their emotional needs are also part of the equation. Babies will still need snuggling, loving, and holding. That was part of the breastfeeding experience. To start weaning, eliminate the baby's least favorite feeding first and give the baby a substitution, expressed breast milk or formula for those less than 1 year old, something else to eat or drink, and snuggle for babies older than 1 year. See how it goes for the next day. Continue to substitute something for breastfeeding at that feeding time. After a couple of days or whatever works for you, choose another feeding during the day to substitute for breastfeeding. Choosing one that isn't nap time or bedtime is usually best in the beginning. Wean the baby from the feeding last. If possible, slower weaning tends to be best. On occasions, mothers find themselves in a situation where they need to wean more quickly for certain rare medical conditions or issues. If you need to wean more quickly, your breast may become full and possibly engorged. Leaning into a dish pan with warm water can sometimes relieve the fullness. So I'm going to show you this picture of a woman leaning forward, soaking her breast into a dish pan. And I also love this book because of the illustrations. I mean, it doesn't get more simpler than that. So as you see here, this woman is leaning forward in this picture below, and she's putting her breast into a dishpan. I have done that once in my journey of breastfeeding when my breast became really engorged, and it did help. Lukewarm water. But in my experience of weaning my baby, so I've had my ups and downs and challenges between whether I was going to quit this whole thing together or to continue on, because it really has its ups and downs and challenges, and it really requires dedication, perseverance, and serious commitment. And then also, there's that other side of it where it's like, you love the bond, and not everybody has those things. But for me, I just knew that my daughter had never been sick, and she had been in and out of the hospital since she was born. So I really believe that breastfeeding her played a huge part in that because she was getting the antibodies she needed. Formula is wonderful. Your body creates and makes something specifically for your baby, and that's the big kicker for me. When I began to wean her, unfortunately, it was all of a sudden decision. I had originally planned to stop at 3 months, and because it was so wonderful, I continued to go on 4, 5, 6. At 6 months, I found out that I had a benign tumor in my knee. And that is when I decided that I was going to slowly wean her off, just due to all the medications that I would have been taking. Now, many have asked me, even with the medications, is it still safe to breastfeed? And it really depends on the medications you're taking. Now, I was having major surgeries, so I was on things like oxycodone, and I think that it is okay for a short period of time. But for me and my particular situation, my healing process is over a month span of time. So I wouldn't have been able to do that and then also be breastfeeding her. And then it wasn't in my best interest, considering that I'd be tired most of the time because I'm on these medications. So for you in your particular situation, you really have to evaluate, ask doctors, ask friends, and get that type of advice before you choose to do so if you're in a situation as myself. So when I started to wean my baby, I decided that I would follow kind of the steps like the book talked about, which was picking a time to slowly wean her off. So I fed her, I nursed. Between 4 to 6 months, I found myself pumping more during the day because she was so distracted, which helped me. So I would literally just pump and give her the bottle. And that was fine too. So I don't know if some of you have introduced the bottles or not, but those are questions that you can ask me in the comments. Feel free. The main thing is, like, the first step is trying to find the best time for you. So if it's before lunchtime, around noon, if you think that's a time to choose not to do that feeding. But long story short, you want to just slowly digress on the feeding. So just choosing a time to take one back and let that continue to be your goal every day. So by the end of the week, for example, you would have ended up with having only nursing or feeding times in the morning and at night. And during the day, she's either getting, if you had leftover milk that you had pumped for a period of time, or substituting it for formula at that point, or solids, depending on how old your baby is. But that's how you kind of want to slowly begin that process on the baby's end. Now, for your breast, that's a whole different story. You really want to make sure you're not, as you're digressing on the amount of feedings you're doing, you want to make sure that you don't have things being causing any type of sensation. Don't let your husbands, your boyfriends play around with your nipples. You don't want to trigger milk to be produced by anything that's going to create sensitivity. So even when you're in the shower, you want to make sure that you're away from the water. Nothing should be hitting your breast directly. And you want to make sure, I've heard of this old wives' tale, I guess, you can put cabbage inside of your bra to keep it from being engorged. You can either put them down into a bowl, into cold water. I really didn't have too much engorgement because I was very strategic and strict on how I was digressing with each feeding every day. And by the end, they do kind of like, your boobs kind of like have areas where all the milk kind of clusters up and it feels like rocks. And I even start to get nervous where I said, let me go to the doctor to make sure everything is okay. Because I felt like they'll feel like a bunch of lumps And so I think it's good to just kind of like let your OBGYN or your doctor, whoever, know that you're in the process of weaning, because I think it's helpful to just have that medical expertise to say, hey, it's fine, and just check it out, because it is a crazy process. For me, it was easy, but for you, it may be difficult. So I would just say step one, start off by taking away feeding each day, and just have a goal for when you really you plan or need to be done. And for me, I had to do this within a week. So I made sure that by that Friday or Sunday, I was going to be done with nursing, and whatever was in there, it would go away on its own. And that's what it does. As soon as your breast realize, hey, there's nothing signaling me to produce more milk, meaning you're not pumping, you're not nursing, there's no type of sensation going on here, your body's going to take a step back and say, then maybe I don't need to produce any more milk. And so your body would just naturally stop producing that amount of milk, and it doesn't happen overnight. So you just have to be patient, and wait, and you will see the difference. But I would just say go ahead and stop doing all of those feedings and pumping so much, and just each time do less and less, even if you're pumping, because I was pumping a lot. So even if I had been doing like 15 minutes at a time or something, that means that starting off maybe the next day, I'm going to do 10 minutes. I'm going to do 5 minutes. I'm going to do 2 minutes, because the more you continue to pump in the amount of time signals how much your body needs to produce. And you don't want to confuse your body with what's going on. So the best way is just take that slow, gradual digression and go from there. And there you have it. That is the best way to wean your baby. It is kind of sad, as I finally have concluded, that I do miss it, but my daughter and I cuddle a lot. So make sure you do find that time to bring that bonding experience back, because my daughter doesn't grab at my shirt or anything. I think just like, she's still so young. She turned 8 months yesterday, but I do see some kids, once they get older, they tend to, grab on the shirt and grab for the boobies. But we can eliminate all of that. There are ways around that. And if you have questions, comments, please feel free to leave it. Thank you for tuning in, and please subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you.